Catalina.
Taylor McHargue has Memphis and Charlotte this week. ESPN broadcaster joins us on 365 Sports. And one of the bigger stories today in the Big 12, other than the fact they're gonna have beach volleyball and lacrosse, by the way, for women's sports starting here pretty soon. Taylor, Quinn Ewers is back. What were your thoughts about what you saw from Maalik Murphy in his a couple of weeks of trying to at least handle that position?
Yeah, I thought two different aspects to this, right? The first for Quinn Ewers is I thought, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I thought they would hold on to playing him for at least one more week. He must be clearly feeling well enough that they're going to run him out there to play him. But I also wonder how they feel about this game at TCU. I thought Maalik Murphy did some nice things against BYU, but that was a team that they were so much better than that I'm not sure it really mattered. What was concerning last week against Kansas State was the ball security to the team as a whole, but specifically for Maalik Murphy in the fourth quarter. And I think that's the piece that you have to be most concerned about if you're Texas going on the road to TCU, and then maybe even a bigger contest the following week in Ames against Iowa State. Quinn Ewers gives you the best chance to win. There's no doubt, and he's healthy. And for every head coach and for every staff, there is a line. And, this week with Memphis, we're talking about it with Seth Hennigan, where he was banged up last week. He's day-to-day right now. Every quarterback that gets hurt, there is a line that you get down to where you fall into the territory of we are better off with our backup in the game than we are with our starter, even if they're at 80%. I think this comes down to ball security issues last week versus Kansas State, and that Texas knows they're going to get TCU's absolute best effort in this upcoming game in 2 days at Fort Worth. This is a primetime game on ABC. They're going to get everything from the Horned Frogs on Saturday night.
Would you have done what Chris Klieman did in overtime?
No, I hated the call, to be honest, and I don't use that word lightly. I thought down the stretch, Kansas State had the momentum. They felt like the team that they were executing at a higher level. Texas had ended up on their heels. Usually, and a lot of times you see this with teams that are the underdog and they've fought their way into an overtime or a last second opportunity to go for two or go for it on fourth down. And if you're the underdog, I love that call most of the time, because if you play out consistent snaps where you're the underdog, eventually water's going to find its level and you're going to lose to the team that you're not favored against. But the way that Kansas State had played towards the end of that game, I thought they were actually the better team. And if that's a 4th and 1 or 4th and goal from the 1 or 2, maybe you feel differently. But from the 4-yard line and the play design that they went with, I thought it did a disservice to their kids. I thought it really would have been better to kick the field goal, try and put points on the board, score a touchdown coming out after that. And then you bank on your defense in the second half. It played pretty well against Texas to get a stop.
Yeah, and Texas just blew that up, that last play. They really did it, but it was like – I also say this, they would have had the ball first to start the second overtime and had momentum of moving the game into overtime, despite what looked like really just kind of seemed like weird calls on even second and third and goal.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, I go back to it would be different if Kansas State had built a huge lead and then it collapsed and now you're in overtime. It was the opposite. Texas had the huge lead. Kansas State climbs back. They get 2 second-half turnovers that flip the game on its head. You force overtime. You've got the momentum. The energy had been sucked out of that building. And Texas very fortunate to get out of there with a win. But look, at the end of the day, look at the Vegas odds for who's projected to be in the playoff. Texas is right there. So it doesn't matter how they got out of there with a win. They won the game, and you're playing meaningful games in the month of November. And also for Texas, probably a benefit that Oklahoma lost last week, and that Oklahoma State, in most scenarios, that's who Texas would end up playing in the Big 12 championship. But still a lot of football left to be played in the Big 12. There's some parity in the top third of the conference that I think has certainly surprised me, specifically with Oklahoma State.
Who's the MVP of the Big 12 right now?
Oh, my goodness. It's probably Bowman at Oklahoma State. That or I go back to a couple different things. Bowman at the start of the year not playing all that great. The last few weeks of the season, and I'm not sure if he got hurt against South Alabama when they lost that game, but that was really surprising. The way that they lost that game and the way that they've come back, and the quarterback play and journeyman quarterback. I may be a little bit biased as a former quarterback, but I've been really impressed with him as a player throughout the season. If it's not him from the running back spot, obviously Ollie Gordon playing really well. That's a guy that, as the season's gone along, I mean, you've seen him get Heisman nods in from some people. But there's still so much football to be played and really meaningful games down the stretch. I mean, shoot, it may end up being Quinn Ewers if he comes back and plays well over the next 3 weeks, even though he's missed a good chunk of the season.
Taylor, the story, in college football, unfortunately, it's not about Penn State playing Michigan. It's about what's around the Big Ten and about Michigan. We are pretty much tapped out. We've had to cover it. We will cover it, whatever might happen, if anything. How annoyed are you with the story itself overshadowing the season?
Yeah, I think we said the exact same thing last week, and I know I said it on Sirius Radio earlier this week, but it's exhausting. And there are, in some respects, this is cheating involved. There's no doubt about it. But does it need to be at this level? No, I don't think so. I told you guys a couple of weeks ago that there was clearly a line that had been crossed, and I still stand by that. But what are we talking about? Is this big enough to suspend Jim Harbaugh the rest of the season and force Michigan to miss the postseason? I mean, those are some of the scenarios that are being thrown out. I don't think it goes that far, because I don't think people realize just how much sign stealing already goes on in college football. And it's interesting that Michigan is at the forefront of this, but there's a reason that a lot of coaches have not been real vocal on how they feel about this, because it goes on, maybe not to this extent, but sign stealing has gone on as long as signs have been in existence. In my opinion, I do think, of course, there needs to be some sort of penalty, but is it keeping Michigan out of the college football playoff? Is it suspending Jim Harbaugh in season? No, I don't think it's any of those things. And I feel like if you're a Big Ten fan and you're calling for Jim Harbaugh to be suspended and these crazy punishments, well, of course you are, because they're in your conference. But I think everybody else in the college football world honestly just wants this story to go away.
Yeah, I think the conversation needs to be for the Big Ten, like, how do you write it in your rule book that they know here's the line? Because Michigan made a good point. It's like, look, whatever you say, like, there's a lot of different ways to interpret this, and you don't have any, you yourself have not written the rule that punishes. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, and again, that we know that this happens. The evidence that Michigan turned around, that they had knowledge that different staffs within the Big Ten were sharing their signals. Now, they were doing it in the old-fashioned way, which every staff on the planet does the exact same thing. Hey, I've got a buddy that's on XYZ staff. You played them last week. I'm going to call you up. Tell me what you learned. Tell me what signals stood out to you. Okay, now we're going to talk about them as a staff. We're going to implement that during the week. We're going to know if they do this signal or they call out this, that means this. Every staff in the country does that. And if you're going to start policing all of the sign stealing, number one, I think it's impossible to do it. I think the easiest solution to all of this is just go with the green dot on the helmets for linebackers and quarterbacks that we see in the NFL. I only counter to that I've heard that made sense. We had a conversation with a coach this year that said that the reason the NFL does that is you've only got 53 guys on your roster. You're trying to limit a ton of snaps for those guys over the course of the season, and that's why you don't see a ton of tempo in the NFL. The green dot and having a mic in the quarterback's helmet would slow down tempo, and there's a lot of offenses and staff that they need that tempo to neutralize the defense, and having the mic system slows it down, but it may be taken away from them because I think we're probably trending in that direction, just as how silly this sign stealing saga has been.
Taylor, we asked this question. Have you watched? I'm going to do this with him too.
Okay.
Have you seen any of the movies involving John Wick, Denzel with The Equalizer, or Jason Bourne?
Oh, I've seen the entire Bourne series. Love those movies. I saw the most recent John Wick, which I'm not sure that may not be my speed. And the Denzel movies, I don't think I've seen those. I got to be honest.
Okay, well, it's disqualified.
There you go. Yeah, no, we're trying to put together a bracket, and Smokey has a thing.
I have a crush on Denzel Washington. I think he's just a cool as hell dude as a person. Really, yeah.
Yeah, Man on Fire is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge Denzel guy. Now that he's a bad A in that movie as well. But whatever series you're referring to, I can't remember what you said, but I have not seen those.
No,
The Equalizer.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. You need to go. Your homework assignment between now and Friday is just go pick out one of the Equalizers. You'll understand. We're trying to find out the baddest man in the movie, so it's not fake. Because Denzel,
you can't do Batman. I mean, that's a different thing.
Yeah, it's not like the Terminator or anything like that with all that stuff. Okay, we were going to ask you for that, but you have seen Jason Bourne, then, right? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. All of those.
Yeah, he against John Wick would be a bloodbath. It would be.
All right, Taylor, what do you think is going to happen at Texas A&M?
Oh, man. I think it would not surprise me if they moved on from Jimbo after this season, because you're going to have to pay him that money regardless. That money is being spent no matter what. And it's a mind-numbing figure, right, to talk about the amount of cash that they would have to, the check that they would have to write him for normal people in almost any profession. That is a mind-numbing amount of money. But the A&M network is vast. It is some very deep pockets. And I don't think there's a program in college football that wants to be relevant more than Texas A&M. And I don't think that's unfair to say. They want so badly to be part of the top cream of the crop, top 10 to 15 programs year in and year out. And it's not working with Jimbo. They don't win big games. They don't look well coached. And I think you probably, if you don't do it this year, I don't know what you've seen that would lead you to believe that it's going to be significantly different next year. Made some staff changes, brought in Bobby Petrino to call the offense, but it's still, from a philosophic standpoint and how Jimbo operates his team and in-game management, it's not working. And so for what A&M hopes to be as a program where they're trying to knock on the door of the playoff and get into their first Final Four, and now even next year when it goes to a 12-team playoff, they still wouldn't be in that scenario. And so, the opportunity to be on a major stage, 12-team playoff, it's there. Again, it's a long-winded way of me saying I would not be surprised if they moved on from him after this season and they wrote him the check for whatever the number is. I think it still has a 7 in front of it.
Yeah, it's large.
Yeah.
Large. Thank you, man. Have a great broadcast with Charlotte and Memphis. Thanks for your time today, Taylor, as always.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
That's Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback, part of ESPN. I didn't agree with the Bowman thought.